Hello, welcome to another episode of the Digital Access Show. Again, our guest is Mark Muscat. Now, Mark's actually preparing to do a bit of travel to Japan, so we've got him on a mobile phone tonight. Thanks, Mark, for doing this. And Mark is the CEO of Digital Access Solutions and Assistive Technology. We're talking about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and in particular, we looked at each of the principles. Now, we've looked at perceivability, we've looked at operability, and today we're going to look at the last two, which is understandable and robust. In a separate session, Mark and I are going to have a bit of a chat about auditing and conformance. So today it is understandable and robust. Mark, what's your take on the understandable principle of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines?
Well, if a 5-year-old can't understand it, then it's not understandable. No, there's a lot to understandable.
Yeah, there is.
um, yeah, content is got to be one of those aspects. There's three causes in the understandable principle. So that's correct, Narelle? You're the one that does
Yeah,
the
there's
auditing.
three. So
Three, yeah.
there is. So the
Three.
first one's the readable, and that's probably the most easy one to fix, isn't it?
Yes, it just means that everything flows. You can read the text.
Yeah.
Images are actually where they're meant to be, and they actually fit in with the text, or the text fits in with the images, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, um, I know we talk about cluttering and all that as
Oh,
well. I
yeah.
mean, I know that's more perceivable, but um, I mean, that sort of, you'll find that a lot of perceivable and understandable are actually linked,
Yeah.
in my view. But yeah, you'll find a lot of that happening. There's a lot of crossover. Um, but I think essentially, yes, it's just making sure that the text is understandable, that acronyms and all that are somewhat clearly stated.
Mm.
What other things are there, Narelle, that we sort of
Jargon.
find?
I mean,
Jargon,
if the jargon's there, make sure, or if it's complex words or words that
yeah.
are out of the norm, maybe add a glossary. What would you suggest? A tooltip, glossary? What do you suggest
I
in
like
that case?
glossaries myself,
Yeah.
because you can click on a link and it gives you a definition
Yeah.
of a particular word. That's I'm probably a bit old school because that's what it used to be.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think lately you've been seeing a lot of tooltips coming up, and they can
Yeah.
work, and you can make those accessible.
Yeah.
There's no problem with those. I mean, it's not saying that they should be outlawed. Um, yeah, they certainly can
But
be.
they have to be keyboard accessible as well as mouse accessible, and people forget that.
Yeah, yeah,
They make it
yeah.
hoverable, but not accessible by keyboard.
Yes, yeah, I agree. So you got to make sure that they are, um, they're there, and that people will be able to get access to the definitions and information
Yeah,
pertaining to words and
yeah,
acronyms, etc. But
yeah.
I think, yeah, it's a very clear one. It's not that difficult.
No,
Uh,
the next one's predictable. What's your take on predictable?
well, yeah, it's if you're expecting something to happen, it should be the case. If you click on a
Mm.
certain button, it should come up with it should come up with the right information that you would expect. I'm just trying to think, what's predictable to you, Nora? What would
My best example, I think,
what's
is the
your
contact us. So if you've got the contact us link in several pages, which is quite normal,
yeah,
and in different spots on pages, it always takes you back to the same page. That to me is a big one.
yes,
Or what's another one? That even, like you said, a menu, it operates the same way. It doesn't matter which
yeah,
page you're on, it operates the same way every time.
yeah. You want them, you want so if you're putting a particular section in a web page itself, you want it to be predictable, no
Mm.
matter where you come from or where you go to.
Yeah.
Um, it's got to be the same. That it's uniform. I think it's probably the wording.
Yeah. Yeah, it
So
is. And I
yeah,
also think it's the wording you use. Like you can use talk to us or contact us or, contact. There's a number of different words you can use about the contact us page, whatever you want to call it. Call it the same words everywhere. Doesn't
yeah,
matter what, but it's just got to be the same.
yeah, and that's why it's predictable. But
Yeah.
I think that just fits into the readability aspect as well, and you'll find that most people will expect. People like that. It's a routine thing, isn't it? People like the
Yep.
predictability of whatever they're doing, whether it's making coffee or reading a
Yeah.
website. They want that. They want that sort of routine. We are
That's it.
routine animals after all. Yeah.
Oh, we are. And the last guideline in the understandable is one I'm really big on, which is input assistance. Error checking.
Yeah, this is also ties into operability in a way
Yeah.
because you want to make sure that whatever, but where we're talking operability is that you get your data validated and it's all correct and any errors that come up. But where the understandability comes into it with input checking is that one you get instructions that make it understandable. We talked about this a little bit in the operability side of it. I
Yep.
guess, but we're making it very clear that instructions are actually important, but
Yeah.
it's probably more so in this particular principle because instructions make it very clear and very understandable to what actually is required from a particular input field. So if you've got a date section and you are saying if you're using locale type environments,
Yep.
their input instructions are going to be different depending on what locale you're working with. So if it's in Australia, it's going to be day, month, year.
Yep.
If it's going to be in the United States, it's going to be, was it month?
Year, month, day,
Month, day,
year.
year.
Yep.
So, and if
Yeah.
you're working in what I like, the scientific notation, which is
Yeah.
year, month, day, um, yeah, and people have those particular, those particular. I mean, I like the scientific ones, but I also like working in Australian. So that's my, some of those local preferences, and each of those instructions for that particular date field has to be in accordance with the local environment. So
I
you
think
can't.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
And also, one of the tests I keep saying to people, just test your form. See what happens if you submit without any information entered. Do you get a text information on the screen, not in a pop up? Forget your pop ups, but on the screen saying, this is the information that's missing and
yeah.
explaining what's required. It's little things like that.
Well, that what you described fits in the operability, but the
Yeah.
understandable is making sure that the text is clear about what
Yeah.
is actually, what the error is being
Yeah.
generated. So it's a bit of an overlap there, but anyway, that it
Yeah.
all makes sense when you do put it into the context of making your websites and web forms in this case understandable. So
That's
yeah.
it. Mark, the last principle is robust. And robust is where I often see a lot of problems. I can just about guarantee a lot of websites fail on it. Now, robust only has one guideline, which is compatible. And basically, it's saying that if you've got a website, you need to be able to view all that information on a mobile phone, on a tablet, on a computer. A person using VoiceOver gets exactly the same information as a person that has to use a puff and sip tool. Everything's the same, right?
That's right, and that's why they it's known as the robust. That it's actually performing in different environments. That it's compatible
Yeah.
with different browsers. We all
Yeah.
know that. Well, there are probably two main web-based engines that are being used in many browsers, but the reality is that different browsers have ways of working with JavaScript, working with HTML5, and HTML5 itself is actually quite loose.
Yes.
You can get away with quite a lot with HTML5.
Yeah.
Um, so there was another part that was part of Robust, and we were just talking
Yeah.
about that before
We
when
were,
we
yeah.
started, and that was to do with the actual code of
Mm.
the websites. But as you have pointed out to me quite correctly, the world doesn't work the way that I think it should. Um, so yeah, we deal with compatibility mainly, and it was so just a couple technical aspects, but
Yeah.
robust is the most technical out of all the principles
Yes, I agree.
because it involves the actual internet and technologies that we actually use to actually produce the websites and for people to browse the websites. So
And that's
on
it.
a
And I
server
think,
and yeah,
yeah. And the easy tests for it really is turn on
right
your
on.
Windows narrator or
Yeah.
if you're on a Mac, your voiceover, and go to your contact us page, whatever, hit submit, and do you hear a voice telling you this is the error? If you don't, you know you've failed robust. And there's
Well,
an
in
ARIA
yeah,
19 role that you can use to fix
yeah,
that.
yeah. You know that in the context of accessibility, but robust is actually a lot more in the sense of
Yeah,
if you can't get the same look and feel from one
yeah,
browser to another, it fails robust as well.
yeah,
So if you wanted to even break that test even further down to a simplified
yep.
visual perspective, if the web page that you're looking at is different from one browser to another, and it doesn't have to be, it could be looking different aesthetically and so forth, but if it functions differently,
Mhm.
then you got robust issues.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
what you described is one important aspect when it comes to assistive technologies,
Mm.
but there is actually a very common way to actually look for it. And often, yeah, as you said, when we talk about conformance, we'll probably touch a little bit about robust. I know people obviously because it's only one now, it's only one. It doesn't really get considered, but it's a really important one to actually do while you're developing and implementing any project because you want to keep it the robust or the robusticity
Mhm.
of your website is actually going to be um, important whilst you actually implement and design that
Yeah.
those particular pages within the site. So yeah, that's pretty much all about robust. There's not much to it, but it's an important principle.
Yeah. Out of the four principles, to my mind, understandable is the one that you most often see people pass. The readability and
Yeah.
predictability, they're pretty straightforward. Oftentimes, the input assistance they pass. So mostly understandable, you do pass. Your perceivability, to an extent, there are errors that like videos, your captioning, your audio description that we talked about, perceivability is often not done or it's done badly. So it's not, they use AI generated at times.
Yeah.
Um, Operability is often one where there's often failures, and robust, there is often failures. So
Hmm.
when you think about it, people do mostly anything's a visual thing, they mostly get right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that the really technical stuff, which is your robust, is mostly wrong. And your operability can be, 50, 80% wrong as well. So what's the advice that you would give to people, Mark, in this area to consider?
Look, in the context of actual development of any system, um, you know, having the an understanding, because that word understanding is quite used a lot today, um, is really important to have that understanding of all the principles when you're actually um, even doing specifications uh, of a project, because you can actually, I think, in a lot of cases, if you include a lot of the principles, um, the attributes of the principles that we've discussed into the specifications that you have in your projects, you'll find that by achieving those specifications, that yeah, that the sites or the systems that you're actually developing are going to be better off, not just in an accessibility context, but in a general usability and perhaps even you could even argue in an efficiency context for systems to be ran. Yeah, we all like to work on what sort of error testing do we do? What
Mm.
sort of um, what sort of expected results should we'd be getting out of a particular website if a server actually produces a result. Database, lookups, fetches, views, all that sort of stuff. That's all important, and the principles that are in the WCAG are really just as important as those. Not just from a usability, but from an internal accessibility point of view. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's all. I mean, I really can't put it. I mean, it comes back to the old adage: do it while you design, and do it while you specify, and you're actually going to have a very accessible project,
yeah.
and it
And I
won't
think,
cost you much to do it.
yeah. And I think, to be honest, the other thing that I find a bit sad, maybe, I know you and I actually went through uni before WCAG became
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
but it should be taught today just as part of the
Oh,
uni course
it should
when
be
you're
taught in.
developing
It really should be
TAFE
taught.
everywhere.
Yeah, it should be taught in software engineering courses. Really.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, accessibility is not so much of a programming um, paradigm. It's more of an engineering paradigm, and it sits well and truly in the software engineering. I mean, one could argue it should be done in programming, and I would agree with that. Um, but the actual foundations of accessibility are actually software engineering rather than
yeah,
actual programming. So yeah, because once you have it all in the specifications, it's up to the programmers to make sure that those specifications are met. So yeah, as a programmer and as a or what I call it, a coder these days,
yep, Coda,
um,
yeah,
it's important to um, uh, fit that in from a software engineering point of view. So we could talk about this for hours, but
yeah,
kind of
we
technical
could.
nature. But the
That's
reality
it.
is, I think you'll find that a lot of this stuff is actually software engineering.
Yeah.
Um,
And the other thing, it's more than that. It's even down to when a document's produced or an email sent that is just always built in. Because if it's always built in, everyone can access the information. And
yeah,
really, all that a document or a website, whatever you do, even what we're doing, it's just communication. And it's
yeah,
good communication practices.
yeah, and I agree. You're looking at a very general point of view, and I totally agree with that. Um, Wondering if we will ever see the W from WCAG dropped off to become
Well,
D or something, digital
what they're
content.
what no, what they're actually talking about in version 3 is actually taking the name web out
Uh-huh.
and just call it content accessibility guidelines for exactly that reason. It's all
Yeah,
digital content.
yeah, and I agree with that.
Mm,
I think that sums it up quite nicely
yeah,
when you look at it.
that's
Um,
it.
well, that being the case, I think there's some important things to actually gain out of that, not just for web, but also for um, media and other forms of content that we're looking
Yeah.
at. And we use day in, day out.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So, Mark, if people want to keep talking about the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, obviously DASAT, the Digital Access Solutions, are the trainers in it and the auditors, and they can contact you by emailing you at reception, reception, at dasat.com.au. Is that right?
yes, that's right. And yeah, if you go to our website, uh, dasat.com.au, and all our details will be there as well. So
Yeah.
you'll be
And
contacting either myself or Narelle.
yeah,
And we'll be happy to answer any questions about not just content accessibility, or digital accessibility, which is what our first two words are. But
yeah,
any assistive technology questions as well, uh, is welcomed. So
yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, look, thanks, Mark. Thanks for
thanks,
tonight.
Narelle.
We're going to do one more principle before you go to Japan, and that's
No,
the
we're not. We're
conformance.
doing conformance. That's not a
We're
principle,
doing
but
conformance. It's not a principle, but we're going to have a chat about auditing and conformance.
yeah,
That's in our next episode. And look, if you like what we're doing, please like, share, subscribe, review, email us, let us know your feedback, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Digital Access Show. Have a good night.